Well, welcome. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming. Pleasure to meet everybody. You've done my NAE intro, so that's fantastic. Thank you very much again. Please do consider joining. I think we're going to get even more active in the months ahead, because I'm going to go part-time in my day job and start doing more of this, I think. But you've all met each other on your tables, so I don't need to ask you to introduce by name. So in a way, that's done, my first job. My next job was to ask you just quickly, in your mind, without talking to anybody, just consider 3 things that struck you as you came as you walked towards the venue today. I came from the station, so from the station, 3 things that struck me. Well, I can think somebody's overheard a conversation as I walked out, caught my ear, and there's a couple of things. But what caught your notice, your attention? Just have a think to yourself first. I'll give you that 6 seconds. Yeah, good. Get some nods, a few things. Now share with people on the table. Did you what did you say? What were your things you noticed? Okay, stop there. Sorry. Love you, keep going. But do carry on that conversation later. The point is, apart from the sunshine, did you all notice the same thing? No. You noticed something different. You came to the same building, made the same sort of journey kind of in a way, but you made your own way here, and in that way you noticed things. You got along Oxford Road, most of you, I'm sure, at some point. You probably didn't notice the dimensions of Oxford Road. You probably didn't know the long history of Oxford Road. Some of you might probably didn't notice a lot of how Oxford Road was written, the type of lettering. There's a lot of stuff you could learn about Oxford Road from a school that you learned. What you learned were the things you just shared. You showed your attentiveness. You showed what was relevant. You showed curiosity, maybe wonder. You showed meaning. That's what you get from walking through the environment and being invited to reflect on that. It's a bit different from what you get from the curriculum, I would just say that. This slide, I think, as I said, you probably can guess where I'm going with this. The national curriculum is very much like the box of paints here on the left. Well, it's packed for one thing. It's not much. We can't get a fag paper in there, but it's also what is predetermined what you're going to have. That's your set. Different governments set a national curriculum. They'll play with this. I mean, the old 2014 one that had probably a lot of red, white, and blue, but probably no green. And now we have the curriculum assessment review, and green. At least 3 shades have gone in. We've got green skills for green jobs in a green economy. In fact, it's so much green, we probably need some turpentine to sort of make it sort of a green wash here to sort of spread it around. So it's there is green in there, but it's still they're in there in the tubes. What they are doing there is inviting us to do something with it. And this is I've done a bit of oil paint. I just love my palettes. This is off the internet because I went looking for one. I was going to just bring one in as I can't find them. But the palette shows you the work, the complexity, the unforeseen outcomes, the possibilities. The painting itself, I don't need to show you that. That's our students. That's you. That's me. We've all been created through our experiences and the curriculum that we followed. And so the painting is forever being created. But this is the complexity of pedagogy. This is what we do with a curriculum. So when I talk about the curriculum in the car, we talk about limitations and where it is right and where it isn't right. And I kind of think, well, don't worry. As any good art teacher will know, take half the colours away and then say, now paint your picture. And you'll get a lot of creativity out of that. In fact, we've done some work with the USET, Universities Council for the Education of Teachers. That's sort of universities who teach teachers. We've got a sort of a subgroup that looks at sustainability, climate change, education. We did a big survey of teachers last year, and we heard a lot of creativity, a lot of issues, a lot of challenges. It's not in the curriculum, it's not in the career framework, it's not in the ITT, ECF, the initial teacher training, early career framework for teachers. All the training they get, you don't mention any of this stuff. It's sustainability. But look at what they did. This special here, and I think we should be able to make the PDF of this freely available to people who came today. But if you're a member, you'll get access anyway. It's just pages and pages of really great work that's been going on across the country, Scotland, Wales as well, Northern Ireland, and loads of places in England, and Manchester University, of course, thank you, and the a lot of lovely practice, despite the curriculum, or lack of. So let's not get too hung up on the curriculum, just to start. What we do have in the car, because people have asked about this, is, well, sustainability and climate change education. I sort of have to keep calling it, but it's that. The names keep changing. We add in nature now. It's in citizenship, it's in science, it's in geography. It's mentioned now, as it wasn't before. It's in primary citizenship has come into primary schools. Sustainable practices is in there. Secondary schools, critical thinking in citizenship and active citizenship. There's an invitation. Whether you have the time to develop that is another thing. I don't know why primary, by the way, isn't in critical thinking and active citizenship, because they just do some philosophy for children. You've got kids thinking very critically from a very early age. The design and technology curriculum has got sustainability, think about what you do. Yeah, and there's enrichment activities, of course, but nowhere do they mention environmental education. Government response accepts all this, confirms it. The only outdoor activities mentioned in the actual curriculum bit is PE, but it does get this enrichment activity. And I think Andy will say more about the positioning of that in the curriculum. Looking at the government response, well, I'd jump over the government response into the white paper that's been published since in February. This is every child achieving and thriving. Interesting in that order. But maybe that could change. But it talks of adapting to a fast-changing world. And it does talk about critical engagement with information that you come across in life. Primary citizenship includes law and rights. Rights. Who you are actually an active citizen yourself. You are a member of society, even if you're still small, with all the disbenefits that can bring. There's one mention of climate change. Did search for it, and it is just quoting a line from the Curriculum Assessment Review. It comes at the end of a list of oracy, financial, digital, media literacy, climate change, sustainability. So it gets in there. I would say the changes are necessary. They're polite. They're adjustments, but there's no real shift in what you would determine as a government priority, the economic priority of government. There's knowledge, stress still over skills or sensibilities. There's preparation over engagement. So it's kind of, it could have been written by the last lot. We shouldn't be surprised. 18th century philosopher Immanuel Kant always said that governments will always prioritize national prosperity over moral purpose. So it's up to the educator to press for moral purpose in education. I used to think that Kant was a bit of a sort of a creature of his day, so moral purpose seemed a bit old-fashioned to me. But when you think moral purpose is actually survival on this beautiful and complex planet, I realise that Kant actually has something to say there, that we have to ensure that that purpose is kept, despite what the government will do, because that's the government's job. I accept that, but I think as a profession, teachers, academics, NGOs, people involved in this area, well, the area I mean is education, we have our role too. I think it's to push back, it's to extend, to enrich the curriculum, to bring it to life, to make it relevant, to find gaps here too, if you have to, but also with our creativity, and you see this, you see it in the magazine, you see it in teachers, in schools, and everywhere going to a school, what you can do with 2 or 3 colours is phenomenal. So don't give up on that. We can always do more. But a national curriculum can never be local. It can never be relevant to everybody. And so we need to acknowledge that and just think, not expect too much from the national curriculum. And thinking about that is my way of staying sane. When we're working with the thousands of micro compromises you have to make in a system of formal education that is running us towards the edge of a cliff without really making any great change. And I do find that sometimes in dark moments, sort of what the hell are we doing here? I'm a part of it. But I think we have to hold on to the fact that actually, no, our role is not just to do as we're told. Absolutely not. And citizenship education in primary schools, I hope, is a sign that we can start encouraging that kind of sensibility as well. There's a lot in the car as well about digital tech and all the rest of that. I just thought I'd mention that as an aside. 3 points I want to say about tech. One is, don't trust ed tech. And there's a very interesting deposition by a cognitive scientist called Jared Horvath, who's speaking at the US Senate about mobile technology and phones and screens. It's phenomenal. I'll give you the link if you haven't seen it. I use it for my doctoral students now. And he's pointing out all the research that shows how we've always learned what every generation is more cognitively aware, is brighter than the next because of school, and because of training, because we work our brains and get exercised until the last generation, Generation Z. He said Gen Z, but it's going down markedly. If you've got 5 hours a day on screens for your education, you will see a plummeting cognitive ability. And he points out a lovely example of comprehension, which we all did, where we'd read a passage and then think about what's behind that passage. Now it is factual sentence about this sentence. What's the fact about this sentence? The facts about this sentence, this one. Facts about this sentence. You are skimming. So you are simply doing what kids do on phones. So what we've done is we are turning education to something that can be measured and used in the technology, rather than using the technology to do something which can enhance our learning. And that is a real danger with going down the ed tech road. The other thing I wanted to say, AI, it's been modeled on male capitalists in the west coast of America. It's not being modeled on humanistic principles. It's certainly not modeled on ecological principles. I think the more we kind of have to engage with it, let's try and infuse it. Let's get some literature into it. Can we feed it with our own thoughts about the ecology of the planet rather than accepting what it tells us? Third point about technology I just wanted to say was, yes, technology can help. It can help us see things I couldn't describe to you, but it's not real. Our young people, their growing minds, don't need augmented reality. They don't need virtual reality. They do need to engage with reality. And that's something that we should be doing with our schools, with our students, getting them outside as much as possible as well, and getting them to think and reflect on what the things they see and do around their world. This leads me to my last point. One thing, I spoke to your group before online, and we talked about the rounder sense of purpose competencies, which is also on a palette, by the way, which is it's a set of competencies for educators. So what are the sort of the 12 things? Understanding systems, futures thinking, practice, action competence, thinking about, make a decision, creativity, transdisciplinarity, some big words in there. Empathy is crucial. It's right there in the middle of the competencies. Just to boil it down, it comes down to 3 kind of principles, if you like. One is connectedness. One is doing something, even if it's futile, just makes you feel better. And third is a vision for the future, sort of a purpose to work towards. And I thought about this curriculum review in terms of connections. Well, there's not a connection across the subjects. It's not kind of demanded of the curriculum. When we did a track changes job with Teach the Future, that was another. If you look curriculum for changing climate, it's got all the national curriculum documents there, but with highlights in them showing where we would change them just a little bit to make them a bit more as if there is a climate crisis. And that's something we did. I thought at the end of every subject it says, and now make links to the other subjects, not just this one. And when we've been just talking to Melissa over there, we've been part of this group talking to the DFE about rewriting a strategy for sustainability and climate change education. What are they going to call it next? And we said that one thing we would stress then is make connections across the subjects. Because yes, it's important to have disciplinary knowledge and skills. It's very important. So that's powerful. But also you need to make the connections, because that's how the world is. It's connected. And interestingly, the DfE have also launched an action plan for the built environment, 10-year plan. No mention of the curriculum. It does connect to different timber strategy, which is good, but no mention in the curriculum about that plan. So that whole estate thing, whole school approach, which is so important in ensuring young people get a real grounding in this stuff, that those connections is not being, there's a wonderful opportunity there that's been missed. But schools, we can do that. Don't have to worry for the DfE. Some great schools have done that. Look at Leadership for Sustainability by David Dixon. His book is just his 20-year experience of being a head of a really green school and all the things they did without permission. So that's the most essential connection, teachers and their students, I would say, the personal connection. And relational pedagogy is not just effective learning. It's actually what children are learning. They're learning how to connect because you are taking care, you are showing empathy, you are listening to them, you are being very patient, you are often biting your lip, and you are managing to keep the relationship going. That is a critical part of learning. Again, it's not something AI can do very well. And if it does, it's really worrying. It's what they're learning when they're doing maths, art, English, but it's the relationship that's critical. The second principle is action. And here I'd emphasize praxis, the combination of knowing, doing, and being. Teachers are critical, as I said, in bringing that curriculum to life, making it real. And that's where I go back to my teacher education work and thinking about how are we ensuring that teachers do get those opportunities? And are they practicing it themselves? Are they making decisions? Are they being creative? And I worry when the curriculum is so packed like this, and to serve it, we can have Oak Academy will produce materials that you can all just download offline, your scheme of work and your lesson plan and your slides even. Done. What are we showing children? What creativity? What are we modeling here? If we're not showing any agency for sure. So curriculum really needs to be, yes, some national priorities. Yes, some local emerging issues that are coming up here. And teachers are the ones who are the people to do that. Not in isolation, because I talk about agency. I worry that we sometimes go down the road of the liberal notion of the agentic individual. But I mean agency with people in an environment, in context, not just that we are all super individualistic people who've got great agency. We need to be careful of that word. But if we're modeling that and that connection with our children just watching us at work, that's, again, learning on the job of being taught. So that's the USET one. I just got a couple more things to say, I think. You are getting mixed up in the end. Back to the car, that's it. The curriculum assessment review. Define the curriculum is essential. That's covered there. And it's the bit about assessment. I haven't really talked, it's curriculum and assessment review. I haven't talked much about assessment because they didn't talk much about it. They kind of said primary, it's okay. Yeah, everybody's sweating over SATs and they're not doing a wider curriculum because they're all panicking about, and the teachers are panicking about SAT scores. That's fine. We like that. And there's going to be a key stage 1 as well. So that's all good. Secondary, yes, they're getting to breadth better. They scrap the E back and let's get more buckets, smooth it out a bit more, have some more variation at GCSE. So that's a sensible adjustment, I would say. Nothing like pedagogy is missing. It's mentioned, but not really discussed. And the types of assessment aren't really discussed. So and I do think there's a lot to be said here about the practical assessments. Even in science education, if you want to know the future, if you want to know how you're going to manage the future, which is unknown, CAR does mention the future, which is empirically unknown. We've got to manage that, negotiate that feeling of going into an unknown future. Well, how do you do that? Well, you do stuff and you try and you experiment and you have accidents, you have mistakes and you learn from that. And that's the sort of thing that we could be doing more of in our lessons and in our assessments. AQA can even do it, because they told me, I was at an Association of Science Education conference a couple of years back in Nottingham, and they were showing all this lovely stuff they do. But of course, it's a bit tricky and it's not a lot of time for this because that's not what the curriculum is asking of you. They want the knowledge. So actually, we've got the technology and we're not using it. So there's a bit more to do there. The last aspect, then, this is very much I'm on the last card. I can't drop any more. The future bit of the round sense of purpose. It's doing stuff, connecting, but also the future and our plan and what is our vision for the future to guide towards. I've talked about a lot of stuff just now, and I see it as kind of, it could all be environmental education. Basically, that's what we're talking about here. But rather than call for more environmental education, because it'll get called something else very quickly, I think what we should be doing is demanding or trying to ensure that education is more environmental. That is the type of education that everybody gets, because that's what education is. So I'd like to sort of reconfigure, repurpose, and think about the limitations of education as if the environment did matter, in a way that Kate Raworth did with donut economics. She came along and said, well, there's limits to growth, but there's a floor you shouldn't fall through, and there's this kind of safe and just space to grow the economy in between those two things. Well, we've got that as well. We can do that with education. And I'm afraid what we've got here in the car is not thinking along those radical lines. They did say evolution and not revolution, and they were very honest about that. And it is an evolution, and it's not in the wrong direction in terms of these are now in the curriculum. But I guess what it does for me is it highlights just how radical we need to be before it gets too late. So thank you very much for giving me a few minutes to share those things on the car.